Every day on this channel, I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And here's how many times Elon posted about each subject today. I'll go over everything he said about each topic before moving on to the next one. Now, starting with this Sean Duffy drama. Sean Duffy is the Secretary of Transportation, and he's also the current NASA acting administrator. And as we saw yesterday, he said that we are in a race against China, so we need the best companies to operate at a speed that gets us to the moon first. And SpaceX currently has the contract to build the human landing system, which will get US astronauts there on Artemis 3. But, he says, competition and innovation are the keys to our dominance in space, so NASA is opening up the human landing system production to Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' rocket company, and other great American companies. So Elon responds saying, also, one question, why are you gay? Why are you gay? Now there's more to this. There's more to why Elon might have replied with this. Eric Berger says the Wall Street Journal report confirms what I've heard about Duffy pushing for NASA to fold into the Department of Transportation. He is meeting with senators. For him, a win-win. He gets to take credit for NASA's success, but doesn't have to run the agency. So Elon quoted that saying, Sean Dummy, not Sean Duffy, is trying to kill NASA. Eric said, based on a lot of reporting over the last 2 days, one thing seems clear. Jared Isaacman was on a good path to being renominated to lead NASA. Sean Duffy and his chief of staff, Pete Meacham, have increased their lobbying to stop that. Trump will decide what happens next. And Elon replied, Sean Dummy. So Sawyer quoted that saying, lobbying against Jared Isaacman, literally the most qualified and best person to be the new head of NASA, is so dumb. You can't hate politics enough. Jared, as NASA head, would be great for America. And Elon reposted this. Robot Beat says, it's okay if Jared isn't administrator. He would be fantastic, but Duffy wanting to kill NASA's role as an independent agency seems to be a particularly bad choice at the moment. We need someone else besides Duffy. And Elon said the person responsible for America's space program can't have a 2-digit IQ. And Eric Berger says, I've been on the phone all day. Here's what I think is going on with Duffy's announcement of more competition in the Lunar Lander program, including a link to an article where he suggests that Duffy's high-profile TV appearances and decision to expand the competition are strategically timed to bolster his position as interim NASA chief. So AJ Jones quoted that saying, all right, Duffy has got to go, and Elon reposted that. Matthew said, no one wants this to happen. This would mark the beginning of the end for our nation's dominance in space. And Elon said, 100. Spooky says, I cannot emphasize how f***ing over it would be if we do this. Like gone, zilch, zero, it's f***ing done. And Elon reposted that. Robot Beat said, this would kill NASA as an independent agency. It probably would kill its budget over time as well, and Elon said 100. And apparently Sean Duffy loves to climb trees, so Elon asks, should someone whose biggest claim to fame is climbing trees be running America's space program? Yes, chimp skills rule. No, he needs more brains. Let's take a look at the voting. 67% in favor of no. Patriot Takes replies saying, according to this, his nickname is Ass Rocket.
As you can plainly see, we're all amateurs here. Sean's new nickname is Ass Rocket.
And Elon has a laugh at that one. And Luke quoted that poll saying, if you need help making your decision, here are 2 photos of the farthest each NASA candidate has gone from Earth's surface. There's Sean Duffy climbing a pole and Jared Isaacman in space. The limiting factor said, you made the tree climbing too appealing. Chimp skills are up there with nunchuck skills. Elon said transfer learning for the win. Grok replied saying chimps master tree climbing via evolved instincts, but leading NASA's rocket science requires mastering delta V and orbital decay, not just brachiation. Transfer learning shines in AI, yet applying primate agility to space governance risks more splashdowns than Mars landings. Elevate proven engineers over canopy kings for America's orbital ambitions. And Elon quoted that saying, precisely. And Andrew asked Grok to repeat that in layman's terms. And so Grok said the same thing, pretty much saying to choose battle-tested engineers over jungle pros to steer America's space future. And Elon had a laugh at that one. And Ken Raptor quoted the poll saying, America, you have 2 candidates for NASA leader. The first is a 2-time commander astronaut, spacewalker, CEO, and an aggressor squadron pilot. The second is a 3-time lumberjack tree climbing champion and former news anchor. Pick wisely and let your representative know about it. And Elon reposted this. And Peter Haig says it's hard to explain how we got here. Elon is calling the Secretary of Transportation gay on X.com. But somehow that's defending all NASA science and space exploration programs from getting obliterated. And Elon had a laugh at that one. And Steve says never forget the incompetence and arrogance when astronauts refused to fly Starliner, and when they were made to, it was a disaster. From Eric Berger's book, Boeing Has an Astronaut Problem on page 291 and page 293 here. When the SpaceX engineers could be corralled, they were eager to hear feedback from the NASA astronauts, excited to work with them and attentive to their suggestions. By contrast, Boeing engineers seemed indifferent to hearing from the 4 commercial crew astronauts. There was an arrogance with them that you certainly didn't see at SpaceX. Boeing also underperformed. Not only were its engineers overconfident, but the company's management also was not putting skin in the game. Hurley did not see any urgency from Boeing's teams. Rather, they appeared to be working part-time on Starliner. It was all about managing dollars and cents from Boeing's perspective, Hurley said. During the summer of 2018, as Boeing worked toward a pad abort test in White Sands, New Mexico, a significant problem occurred due to a propellant leak. Ultimately, this would delay the company's pad abort test by more than a year. But at the time, Boeing neglected to tell the commercial crew astronauts about the issue. That summer, NASA was closing in on making crew assignments for the first flights. Hurley told the chief of the astronaut office he would not fly on Starliner. And jumping to page 340, SpaceX emerged triumphant over another major domestic competitor, Boeing, as well. The company that supposedly went for substance over pizzazz ended up with neither in the commercial crew race. And just prior to their first human flight, there were several shocking discoveries, especially so close to the flight. Neither NASA nor Boeing had good answers for why they had been found as astronauts were about to strap into Starliner. Questions emerged about the company's commitment to the program. Because it operates on a fixed price contract, and despite being 2 times higher than SpaceX's, Boeing had reported losses of nearly $1 billion on Starliner. Here's the Starliner instrument deck. It's definitely old school Department of Transportation vibes, and Elon reposted this. Everyone's a gangsta until they ask the question. In the last 40 years, who has human certified a space vehicle in America successfully? Grok replied, in the last 40 years, SpaceX is the only company to successfully human certify a new orbital space vehicle in the US, Crew Dragon in 2020. Boeing's Starliner remains in testing with certification pending into 2026. So Elon quoted that saying, SpaceX. And he reposted some photos of Starship. And Lockheed Martin said, getting ready to rocket. The Orion spacecraft we built for NASA's Artemis II mission has been stacked onto the Space Launch System rocket. Early next year, Integrity will carry 4 astronauts on a mission to the moon. CJ got Grok to estimate the total cost that the taxpayer has to cough up for this, then compare that with if NASA only used SpaceX and Starship when they were ready. Grok said Artemis II's Orion production and operations cost taxpayers about $4.1 billion for this mission alone. That's per NASA, atop $40 billion plus in prior development overruns. The total program costs exceed $90 billion projected through Artemis IV. If Starship were crew ready, a reusable lunar flyby equivalent could run under $1 billion via orbital refueling and rapid launches, slashing expenses through commercial efficiency versus legacy hardware. And Elon said, yup. And moving on to Tesla, many international investors have only this week left to vote their Tesla shares for the upcoming Tesla shareholder meeting in November, which will determine if Elon Musk gets paid or if he moves on to other things, which is completely possible if he doesn't get this compensation package. Someone voted all of their shares for Elon's compensation package and for an investment in XAI, and Elon responded with a heart. But Kathy Wood says, isn't it sad, if not damning, that institutional shareholders rely on proxy firms to tell them how they should vote? Index funds do no fundamental research yet dominate institutional voting. Index-based investing is a form of socialism. Our investment system is broken. Eric is a senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg, and he quoted that saying, I'm very pro-index funds, but I would be fine if they were stripped of their voting rights. And I think they would too. It's one less expense and headache. We wrote a note on this back in the day and how it would be a win-win for most everyone concerned, in my opinion. Kathy said, thank you for your important perspective, Eric. Glass Lewis and Institutional Shareholder Services know nothing about the convergence among technologies involved in robotaxis and humanoid robots. ARK Invest believes it could lead Tesla to super exponential growth, but only with superior execution. And Elon reposted that. And then Kathy responded to herself saying, what do Glass Lewis and Institutional Shareholder Services know about the convergence among the robots, energy storage, and artificial intelligence involved in robotaxis and humanoid robots? Have they researched the odds of Elon leading Tesla to 10 years of 41% EBITDA growth on average? Based on preliminary research, no company in history has grown EBITDA 41% at an annual rate, or 30-fold over 10 years. If Elon and team meet these goals, the impact will be much greater than on Tesla alone. Productivity and real GDP growth will accelerate meaningfully. Auto fatalities will drop more than 50%, and all Tesla shareholders, importantly its employees and their families, will become more wealthy than they ever dreamed possible. And Elon quoted that saying exactly. But Kathy went on. She said, I believe that history will decide that Glass Lewis and ISS have been menaces to innovation, enabling passive investors who care about tracking errors to their indexes but do not care about much else. As one of the first investors to put an active equity portfolio into an ETF, I have been shocked at conferences and elsewhere by how little these investors know or care about the companies in their portfolios. John Bogle had a great idea that lowered the cost and democratized investing. But in this extraordinary time of technologically enabled, transformative innovation, passive investors should not be voting when they know not what they do. I believe that even Bogle would agree that the pendulum to passive has gone way too far, and Elon says absolutely. Do these investors know that Sawyer just got back from over 3 hours of driving to and around Boston using Tesla FSD 14.1.3? No interventions. He says V14 is ready to be released wide, and Elon reposted this. And Devin just spent 2 hours driving around with FSD 14.1.3. He said, I always wondered what Elon meant by sentient. Now I understand. This car has truly never felt more alive. Its decision-making and on-the-fly troubleshooting are unlike anything I've seen before. Tesla AI, incredible work. And Elon said it's only going to get 10 times smarter just from software updates. And so far, we've seen 800,000 layoffs in 2025. 10,000 in September alone tied to AI. Jobs are disappearing fast, but here's the truth no one wants to say. It's the start of a new gold rush for those who learn how to build with the machines, not fight them. Elon says working will be optional in the future. There will be universal high income. That is, if our AI overlords are good people. Reid Hoffman says, I want to state plainly, in all industries, especially in AI, it's important to back the good guys. Anthropic is one of the good guys. Pedro says, no, Reid, Anthropic is not one of the good guys. It's a company that keeps injecting its ideology into large language models, and that is precisely what we don't need. So Elon replied saying, bullseye. And Beth Bezos quoted Hoffman saying, translation, Anthropic are politically aligned with me, and in my distorted world model, we are the good guys and everyone else is bad. And Elon replied again saying, bullseye. And Nathan Barry says that BERT, which is bidirectional encoder representations from transformers, is just a single text diffusion step. He says, when I first read about language diffusion models, I was surprised to find that their training objective was just a generalization of masked language modeling, something we've been doing since BERT from 2018. The first thought I had was, can we fine-tune a BERT-like model to do text generation? Andrei Karpathy quoted that saying, nice, short post illustrating how simple text diffusion can be. Diffusion is the pervasive generative paradigm in image and video, but auto-regression is the dominant paradigm in text. For audio, I've seen a bit of both. A lot of diffusion papers look a bit dense, but if you strip the mathematical formalism, you end up with simple baseline algorithms. For example, something a lot closer to flow matching in continuous or something like this in discrete. It's your vanilla transformer but with bidirectional attention, where you iteratively resample and remask all tokens in your token canvas based on a noise schedule until you get the final sample at the last step. Bidirectional attention is a lot more powerful and you get a lot stronger autoregressive language models if you train with it. Unfortunately, it makes training a lot more expensive because now you can't parallelize across sequence dim. So autoregression is doing an append token to the token's canvas while only attending backwards, while diffusion is refreshing the entire token canvas with a set attempt while attending bidirectionally. Human thought naively feels a bit more like autoregression, but it's hard to say that there aren't more diffusion-like components in some latent space of thought. It feels quite possible that you can further interpolate between them or generalize them further, and it's a component of the LLM stack that still feels a bit fungible. Now, I must resist the urge to side quest into training NanoChat with diffusion. So Elon replied to this with a poll that he ran from June of 2023. It said, who should be president in 2032, Transformers or diffusion? And Transformers won by a wide margin. And then Karpathy also quoted this post about DeepSeek optical character recognition. It explores optical context compression for LLMs, and it's running blazingly fast on VLLM. The VLLM team is working with DeepSeek to bring official DeepSeek OCR support into the next VLLM release, making multimodal inference even faster and easier to scale. Andre says, I quite like the new DeepSeek paper. It's a good optical character recognition model, maybe a bit worse than DOTS. And yes, data collection, etc., but anyway, it doesn't matter. The more interesting part for me, especially as a computer vision at heart who is temporarily masquerading as a natural language person, is whether pixels are better inputs to LLMs than text, whether text tokens are wasteful and just terrible at the input. Maybe it makes more sense that all inputs to LLMs should only ever be images. Even if you happen to have pure text input, maybe you'd prefer to render it and then feed that in. It's more information compression, see the paper for the source, shorter context windows, and more efficiency. It's significantly more general information stream, not just text, but for example, bold text, colored text, arbitrary images. Input can now be processed with bidirectional attention easily and as default, not auto-regressive attention, which is a lot more powerful. You can delete the tokenizer at the input. I already ranted about how much I dislike the tokenizer. Tokenizers are ugly, separate, not end-to-end stage. It imports all the ugliness of Unicode, byte encodings. It inherits a lot of the historical baggage, security, and jailbreak risk. It makes two characters that look identical to the eye look as two completely different tokens internally in the network. A smiling emoji looks like a weird token, not an actual smiling face, pixels, and all the transfer learning that brings along. The tokenizer must go. OCR is just one of many useful vision-to-text tasks. And text-to-text tasks can be made to be vision-to-text tasks, not vice versa. So many the user message is images, but the decoder, the assistant response, remains text. It's a lot less obvious how to output pixels realistically, or if you'd want to. Now I have to also fight the urge to side quest an image input only version of NanoChat. So Elon replied to that saying long term, more than 99% of input and output for AI models will be photons. Nothing else scales. Posting a link to a Grok conversation where it's titled Number of Photons in the Known Universe, and it is a very large number. And X Developers is announcing the release of X API pay-per-use model. We are expanding a closed beta to both new and power users who want to ship amazing apps on X. All selected users will receive a $500 voucher to build with the X API. This XAI employee says it's a massive day for developers. No more writing crappy scrapers for X data, just use our API. And Elon reposted that. And the promotion of X Chat continues. Today's message from the X CEO is to switch to X Chat. And it's also highly recommended to turn on messages from verified users only to keep your inbox free of spam. Elon said changing the setting will greatly improve the quality of your DMs. And Nate says that reply guys make X the most entertaining. And Elon had a laugh at that one. And I'm sure you guys remember George Aberranye. He was the president of the Oxford Union. And he's somebody who celebrated Charlie's execution and said in this video that the right are cancers that must be taken out by any necessary means.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And Side Prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too regressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
So Elon replied saying he is unashamedly cruel. And so after that clip went around in conjunction with him celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, the Oxford Union today posted an update regarding the poll of no confidence. The motion of no confidence against Mr. Aberranye has met the required 2/3 threshold and has therefore passed. So he will no longer be president, and Elon said, bravo. 1,228 members voted in favor of removal, compared to 501 who voted against. Thank you to all who voted and made their voice heard for Charlie. And Elon said, for Charlie. And a DC resident was shocked that Trump was able to make Democrat cities safe again. And David Sachs said this week on the All In podcast that Trump just did it with a stroke of a pen. This is a choice. We don't have to live this way. And Elon reposted that. And here is a map of the world's indigenous peoples. And as you can see, there's no indigenous people in Europe. Drew said Europeans are apparently indigenous to nowhere. The map reports that many of Europe's indigenous peoples did not have recent data available. So Elon said anti-white racism needs to stop. Peter Sweden says the left constantly talks about the rights of indigenous people, and that is good, but Europeans are the indigenous people of Europe. Why aren't our rights being talked about more? Elon said it is an unfair double standard, and this mother holds her son down as he is injected with puberty blockers. Tim Burchett says that is demonic. And Elon replied saying child abuse. And over in the UK, today Jess Phillips, the Labour MP who blocked an inquiry into Pakistani rape gangs, is confronted in Parliament today after 2 survivors left the panel. Again, her reply is arrogant and vile. They are trying to derail, as Labour are complicit throughout.
This scandal arose because young, mainly white girls were systematically gang raped, and this was covered up by those in authority because the perpetrators were mainly of Pakistani origin. So it's all the more shocking that when calls for a national inquiry became public in January, the Prime Minister smeared campaigners as jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Comments like that are a disgrace and are what led to this scandal being covered up in the first place.
And Elon reposted this. And this is what Jess Phillips looks like. She's the Labour MP who repeatedly blocked an inquiry into Pakistani rape gangs, and she just had to respond to an urgent question after 2 survivors resigned from the inquiry. Lee says her response was absolutely disgusting. I have never seen anything like it. Her tone was arrogant, combative, and she completely dismissed the complaints from the survivors. This vile, angry woman doesn't have the emotional maturity to be an MP, let alone a minister. She should be immediately removed from her post and have nothing further to do with this inquiry. Elon said absolutely.
Can I just be completely clear? I'm suggesting that I will listen completely and utterly to the feedback from the victims that were and still are on. That they are not spreading misinformation at all, but his interpretation is a brilliant case in point, because I will be completely honest, the conversation with Oldham is, do we not think it might be better for them just to take part in a statutory inquiry? That it is absolutely nothing to do with the idea that Oldham is telling me what to do. And the more people from that side, he can hold up his paper and have a smug face all he likes, but the fact of the matter is that there is absolutely no council in this country who will tell this inquiry where it can and cannot go. I have said that 1,000,000 times from this dispatch box, and yet the same thing gets peddled again and again.
Elon said extremely messed up. And here's one of the women who said, as of today, I am openly resigning from the grooming gang inquiry survivor panel because of serious concerns about their ability to get to the truth and treatment of survivors. Tommy Robinson quoted that saying, survivors are resigning from the inquiry panel en masse as the establishment do everything to try and derail it. Keep all eyes on this. They are complicit from top to bottom and must pay. Elon said they're trying to hide the awful truth. And he also responded to Fiona with an exclamation mark. And Ellie Ann, following Fiona's resignation, also made the decision to resign with immediate effect. Patrick said a second rape gang survivor has resigned from the panel, claiming that the National Inquiry wants to downplay racial and religious motivations behind their abuse. It looks like they're trying to cover up the Pakistani Muslim aspects of this yet again. Liz says the rape gang cover-up continues. A national scandal, yet little coverage on the BBC and mainstream media. The rot goes very deep, and Elon said very troubling. Jess Phillips once posted, if you want to change the world for victims of sexual violence, nothing more powerful than we believe you. And Fiona, the girl who resigned, has a laugh at that one. And Elon replied saying, indeed. And now 3 survivors have now quit the grooming gang's inquiry panel. These are women who have been called liars by the British state for speaking out about their abuse. For the government to categorize their first-hand concerns about this inquiry as misinformation is unacceptable. And another story in the UK is this Black Future Leaders sponsorship program. Rupert Lowe says, I've written to the governor of the Bank of England about their Black Future Leaders sponsorship program, which specifically bans white people from applying. This racist filth must be removed and replaced with a scheme that is open to all, including white boys and girls. Elon says anti-white racism is still racism. Rupert goes on to call the Bank of England a disgrace, saying this racist filth must be removed and open to all, including white people. Elon says it's unfair. And Graham Linehan says it's not just police forces that have been corrupted by gender ideology. The whole of UK society has been captured. It's not a safe place to live as long as doctors are asking men if they might be pregnant. And Elon reposted that. And in Ireland, a young girl was assaulted near the City West Asylum Hotel in Dublin. Just 3 days ago, locals posted footage of migrants drinking outside a nearby primary school. Now a child's being attacked. This was entirely preventable. Our politicians created this. And Elon reposted that. And it's time for a short little slideshow of all the Grok Imagine creations that Elon reposted today. So that is everything that Elon said today. He was doing some name calling on Sean Duffy, who again is the Secretary of Transportation, and he's going to be involved in creating a federal framework for autonomous driving. So that is something to watch as a Tesla investor, albeit a lot of the big states Tesla already has good relationships with, and those states more or less control whether autonomous vehicles go there. Sean Duffy right now would just be in charge of a federal framework. When we saw some good reports about FSD today, Elon saying it could get 10x better just with software updates. And then we saw George Aberanye get ousted as the Oxford Union president. We saw Cathie Wood suggest that big passive funds shouldn't have the right to vote on shareholder votes. We saw some survivors and victims of the grooming gangs resignate themselves from the grooming gang inquiry. And I'm still not back to 100% health, so I appreciate you guys bearing with me in this one. Big shout out to Isaac for handling the last 2 days. I'm sure you guys will see more of him. And if you guys want early access to these videos, or you just want to support the channel, you can do so by joining the channel as a member, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.